Joining us now to break down the day's top headlines is Jenna Ellis, a senior legal advisor to the Trump campaign and a personal counsel to President Trump. So Jenna, once again, there's a little bit of controversy going into this last debate. I mean, a lot of people were saying that the debates themselves or the moderators should not be the story, but it seems to be anything but this election cycle. We're hearing today that even the subjects themselves are not exactly in line with what was agreed to by the two campaigns, as well as the fact that the debate commission is considering rule changes such as muting the microphones. What does this tell you?
Yeah, well, it tells us exactly what we've always known, is that the Presidential Debate Commission is completely biased, and they are trying to help Joe Biden, and they're trying to make this completely tailored in the best way possible to help him across the finish line. And this is absolutely ridiculous. And my colleague, Michael Glassner on the campaign, wrote a great op-ed that said that the Debate Commission might as well just go ahead and endorse Joe Biden. And so that's really where we're at, because the American people really need to have the opportunity to have Joe Biden answer questions directly on whether he is for court packing, where's his Supreme Court list, and now especially with the Hunter Biden emails that are coming out, why didn't he register foreign agents' contacts? And I mean, how has he handled this? What really is the story behind this? And so with 15 days to go before the election, having the debate commission basically take any foreign policy off the table tells you that they're scared that the truth will come out and that the American people will reelect President Trump because they know that Joe Biden is thoroughly corrupt.
And I would say that a lot of people want to hear answers from President Trump, too, acknowledging the fact that the last debate wasn't exactly the most substantive. But President Trump is asked these questions on a near daily basis, and he comes out and voluntarily gives the information at times. I mean, he decides to bring up these conversations probably to the detriment of a lot of people on the campaign who want to say, you know what, let's hold this for the debate or something like that. Whereas Joe Biden, on the other hand, he called a lid today until Thursday night. I mean, that is what we're dealing with right now. We can't get answers about simple policy positions when it comes to Joe Biden, and it doesn't seem like the moderators are willing to press him on that either. I mean, at the last debate, it seems like Chris Wallace was trying to get him out of answering for some of these things. So what does President Trump need to do at the next debate in order to be successful, come out of there with what he wants?
Yeah, and I think you're exactly correct that, for Joe Biden calling a lid on this is basically saying that he's not going to answer any questions. I mean, this is astounding that an alleged presidential candidate is refusing to be transparent to the American people. And so if the only time that he's going to show up and answer questions is on the debate stage, then what President Trump is going to do is to simply ask him those questions. And if the moderator won't, then President Trump, I think, is definitely prepared to say, listen, you have to answer these questions, and then step back and give him the floor and give him time to either answer them or look really, really embarrassed and shady not answering those questions. So I think that that's really President Trump's focus going into the last debate, because you're right, Alex. This is something where President Trump has been fully transparent with the American people. We hear from him on a daily basis at 2-hour speeches and rallies. Everyone knows where President Trump stands and that he's on the side of the U.S. Constitution. We need to hear from Joe Biden, and I think President Trump is in a great position on Thursday to really pin him down. And I hope that the moderator this time will not do what Chris Wallace did and just say, oh, we're out of time, let's change the subject. That shouldn't be acceptable.
I mean, when it comes to an issue like court packing, especially what's going on right now, it's one of the biggest issues going into this campaign cycle. That's the equivalent of a Republican, for example, not willing to say if they're pro-life or pro-choice. I mean, it is something that very much so does affect how a voter will come out and either support that candidate or not on something that is so fundamentally different between these two candidates. I mean, because in order to get to the Supreme Court thing, by the way, you would have to do away with the filibuster. Really what they're talking about is doing away with the norms that we've established over the past 250 years. But I do want to move on to the Hunter Biden allegations as well, because Joe Biden was asked about that over the weekend, and he got rather combative with the CBS reporter who asked that question. And I think that is indicative of really the way that he handles tough questions. So when it comes to this Hunter Biden story, what do you make of the way that the media has been handling it?
Yeah, the media, again, they are trying to, just like the debate commission, push him over the line. And the fact that Twitter and big tech, as well as the mainstream media, didn't spend any time on this. I think it was a total of 9 minutes over the last week that the 5 top mainstream Democrat really aligned outlets spent across all 5 platforms. This is insane. that they are not willing to cover such a critical and incredibly important story because they know that this hurts Joe Biden. And so they are just trying to minimize this. For the reporter to ask him what flavor of ice cream, I mean, that is a question that's not even relevant whatsoever to politics. So this is shameful for the media to not be willing to actually do their job as journalists and ask the difficult questions and allow Joe Biden to hide and to skate past this. And again, he is going to have to be confronted with this on the debate stage Thursday, and President Trump's going to do it.
No, and the question about the ice cream, that's something that you ask during the Iowa caucus, maybe when they're all at the state fair, not at a time where we're 2 weeks out from the presidential election and we're trying to figure out what direction this country is heading in. But you do raise an interesting point, and a question that I had before. When it comes to the deterioration of norms, if you will, I mean, the Senate, for example, saying that it only takes a simple majority under Democrats in order to pass through judges, and then it gets being used against them when it comes to the Supreme Court nominees. When it comes to this latest allegation against Hunter Biden and perhaps Joe Biden as well, did Democrats set the precedent for a hypothetical President Joe Biden being impeached for this type of behavior, acknowledging what they did to President Trump?
Well, there's no question that if the shoe is on the other foot, Democrats would absolutely impeach over this issue without even having a thorough investigation. I mean, even just what we know right now, Nancy Pelosi would already be up there screaming impeachment. But this is just yet another example of how Democrats don't play by the constitutional objective rule of law. They just want to change the rules whenever it suits them to their advantage. And so, of course, they're going to claim impeachment over something incredibly trivial and constitutionally impermissible, actually, like what they tried to do with President Trump. But then when it comes to something like Joe Biden and actually having this sort of foreign transaction and this foreign allegiance that would qualify under the impeachment clause as treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, then that's something that, of course, they would overlook. And so this is just yet another example. Democrats don't want to be held accountable. They think they're above the rule of law. They'll invoke the Constitution only when they think that it works to their advantage. And this is why we have to preserve and protect our American system of government. The supreme law of the land, as the Constitution, is what ultimately has to prevail. That's why we have judges on the judicial branch, not activists. And so for court packing, for all of these reasons, this is why the Democrats are showing they just don't want to be held accountable. We need to vote them out of office, vote for President Trump, and for conservatives all the way down ticket.
I mean, there's a reason why there's a separation of powers in there, and I think that is quite literally at risk when you get to the conversation about packing the courts, because that is quite literally one of the branches saying, I'm going to exert my influence over another branch based on their political leanings, and I think that's absolutely wrong. But Jenna, Ellis, I really appreciate you coming on the program tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex.